Okay, this meeting is called to order in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was sent to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Highland Park Planet on April 3rd, 2020, and was posted on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, 221 South Fifth Avenue in Highland Park on April 3rd, 2020, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. Elsie, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure, Mayor. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United
States of America
and
and
to the
the
republic
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
for all. Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Brill Mittler,
I am here.
Councilman Fine,
Here.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
here.
Councilman George,
Here.
Councilman Hale,
Here.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan, Councilwoman Welkowitz, Borough Attorney Schmier,
Here,
Borough Administrator Hovere.
Here.
Okay. Before we go any further, I want to welcome everyone to our third virtual council meeting. For those of you tuning in through your computers or on phone, thank you for your participation. A recording of the proceedings will be made available via HPTV following this meeting. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Water and Sewer Workshop held September 24th, 2019 as distributed?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Councilman Fine,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Yes.
Councilman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hale.
Yes.
Okay. We'll go into the council reports. I'm going to ask the council members to report on things that are new since our last meeting, and to please try to keep your reports brief. So let's start on my screen. Councilman Hale is the first up.
Okay. I just wanted to real quick, Main Street Highland Park is working very, very hard to make sure that our businesses, in particular our restaurants, are engaged, trying to get people to go for Takeout Tuesday night. There's a list on the Main Street Highland Park of all of the restaurants that are offering takeout in various safe forms, and there's a lot of them. So if we could all sort of chip in and help, particularly our restaurants, get through this by Takeout Tuesday nights, I think it's a great thing for folks to do. I also wanted to let people know that we are working diligently to figure out a very safe way to open up the farmers market. We are shooting for a target date of May 1st of that. It won't be the traditional farmers market where everybody gets together and hangs out, but there's a lot of different ways that we are hoping to make it work, where people can come and get some great fresh produce. Again, it's a work in progress. We hope to have it up very shortly, but please stay tuned for that. So those are the two things I have.
Okay, I just want you to know, Councilman Hale, that my husband and I enjoyed a delicious delivered dinner for Tuesday from the Turkish Grill today. So we're hoping to work our way around every Tuesday, every restaurant that we can.
Absolutely. And again, go to Main Street Highland Park and take a look. There's a list of everyone that's open. Call before you, assume that they're there. But it's we have a lot of folks that are keeping it together. So please go out to all of them. Thanks.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin.
Well, first of all, I want to wish everyone to be safe. As it pertains to COVID, school, and everything else, I'm just going to give a quick update. One of the things that we worked on is that now that the schools are providing for any families in Highland Park who need meals, the school will be able to provide any family. You don't have to have kids in the school, they're providing that. As pertain to the teen center, they continue to have their virtual meetings. So they have been doing a lot of Skype. As a matter of fact, they had one at 6 o'clock. And they're doing Skype just to keep the kids involved and engaged over at the teen center. They have 13, I believe, students, high school seniors that will be graduating this year, and they're all going on to higher education. One of the things that Ashton is working on is a virtual graduation for the teen center, and the virtual graduation, that's what they were planning tonight. And an idea that we came up with is to provide them a going away package, because they're not going to do their traditional graduation. So we're going to try to put something to see if we can get some kind of funding and support from the community to get these 11 to 13 individuals care packages, such as the stuff you need for college, blankets, lamps, that kind of thing, and put together a nice little package for them as they leave Highland Park and go off into college.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so we started working on that today. So we want to wish our teens well, and you know, I think they're gonna miss the traditional graduation as it is. So we're making, in case that doesn't happen, we're making alternate plans. And also the teen center continue to be a good resource for families, children who go there to get meals. So they continue to do that meal program there. And now it's better that the schools have opened up to all residents of Highland Park so they can get food. The mayor will talk about a lot of other things later as it pertains to COVID. But words of congratulations. Last Friday made 1 year since we had the acting chief and the acting captain. So they made their 1 year mark, and they are now our Highland Park chief and captain. And I want to wish them congratulations. We're going to talk about, later on, we'll talk about a lot of different things that they're going to be doing, but some of when we charged them to put them in acting positions, we gave them a task to look at what they would do for Highland Park 2020 and beyond. And, you know, just to give you a brief, I'm going to share this benchmark with the council later for the chief and captain, but just to give a quick update of some of the things that they have done, that they pledged that they were going to do, and it was to identify and to be responsive to community issues and concern. For example, the controversy at the Highland Park Library, when we had that whole thing going on, they made sure that safety was paramount when the discussion or the book reading was supposed to be had. They made sure that the chief and captain made sure all the needs of the borough of Highland Park were met by keeping everyone safe. They developed plans. They reached out to different communities to get the resources that they needed just in case they needed it. On a lighter note, they did, for the first time, they did a trunk and treat by the community, and a lot of people came out, and I was out there, and they had a really good time. They went above and beyond to provide those kind of resources. And they're looking to create more collaboration with private groups in the community and to talk about what kind of programs they can bring to the table, what are some of the needs of the community. And one of the things that they have taken a very, very forward step on is the social media with the police department. They're there, they're ever present. They're always showing themselves and, you know, giving us updates. Daily, we see different things coming out of the PD with the new leadership that they have to keep the community engaged, and not just the one-way communication, but they put the information out and they respond back on Facebook, as you can see. They, out of the Lacey Davis report, it talks about use of force and transparencies and checking our numbers and making sure that we have when investigations are going on and what the numbers mean, that kind of thing. And they're now working with Rutgers to come up with a policy that they can actually, every quarter, we'll have numbers that we can look at how they are doing in the PD with an overall report. And that came out of the Lacey's report, and they have taken that seriously. And they're going to be working on that and keep it updated on the website. As well, many of you know that we're scheduled to have quarterly meetings. That has not happened. Maybe we could look at after COVID, we can look and see how we can continue doing those. But those are just a brief synopsis of some of the things that they were actively doing. I know my council colleague, Hale, has been really working on me to get this out, this report of the benchmark out of what the police department wants to do, what's their vision for now and beyond, and to let the community know what's out there. And he's been a stalwart support of pushing that, making sure that we get the information out. There were some information that could not be shared prematurely. We were advised by the mentor that we should take a step back, let them do what they have to do before we start advertising what it is that they have accomplished. So now that that time has passed and they have a checklist, they're going to provide us even more information about some of the stuff that they continue to do. But I will make this report available to the entire council. I'll send it to Joan and she can share with everyone. And everyone just be safe, and that's my report.
Thank you. Councilman Fine, do you have a report?
I do not have a report tonight, Madam Mayor.
Okay. And Council President Phil George, do you have a report? No volume, Phil. Phil, we can't hear you. Phil?
All right, there we go.
Ah,
I was clicking the mute and it wouldn't click. Thank God Emma is watching over me and making sure that this old guy knows how to do this. I'll waive my public works report. The public DPW is out there working. We haven't missed a beat. We're going to be talking about water and sewer benchmarking. So in the work session, I'll save that. However, Councilwoman Kim Chohan is not here. But just to note, the Art Collective donated $175 to the food pantry, and it also is sponsoring a mask contest with a $100 cash prize. The flyer is going out tomorrow. The entry fee is a donation to the food pantry direct. They'll let us know who entered. I've lined up donations from out of state for people who want to and participate in it. You'll see the flyer online tomorrow. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you. Okay, Borough Administrator, do you have a report?
I don't have one this evening, Mayor.
Okay, Borough Attorney, do you have a report?
No report, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I just have a couple of quick things. Councilwoman Kim Chohan is not here, and I just wanted to update folks on what a wonderful job many of her committees are doing. HP Gives a Hoot and the food pantry have been working closely with our community services staff and providing food for many, many residents. We do have an increase in the number of people participating in the food pantry, and thankfully, due to lots of donations that our staff has been able to get, we are able to keep up with that demand. We also, HP Gives a Hoot has been providing meals to, I believe, 31 teen center families, and the food for that is being provided by HP Gives a Hoot. I also want to say, sadly, our Board of Health and our community lost a longtime member recently. Mr. Ken Sachs passed away about a week ago. Ken served on the Board of Health for over 20 years, and he will be sadly missed. I'd like to take just a very brief moment to remember him right now. Okay. I know several people were asking me why there is a difference in the numbers that we report versus what the county reports and what the state reports. I just want people to keep in mind that this is a massive undertaking for the State Board of Health and the County Board of Health. There are sometimes a lag in the number of, in days, of reported numbers that come from the state to the county. We then get the numbers from the county. There was also a period of time where we were receiving duplicate numbers, which have been being cleaned out. I want to thank Chief Abrams for keeping such a wonderful tab on all of our current numbers. We may be seeing a difference in the numbers due to streamlining and improving the reporting sometime tomorrow. So please keep that in mind. And with that, a little bit later today, I'm asking the council to vote on a resolution that will allow us to help some of our residents in town who are having financial difficulties by extending the deadline date for this quarter's municipal taxes. And we'll talk more about that as we get closer to that part of the agenda. And with that, I just want to remind everyone, when you go outside, please keep 6 feet of distance between you and the people coming towards you or walking near you. Wear a mask, please. And if we do all of this, continue washing your hands, avoid going out unless it's absolutely necessary, then we will beat this faster and with much greater strength. Okay. It is now time for the first public discussion session. The total time for this session is 21 minutes, 3 minutes maximum per speaker. Comments are limited to items at this session, items that aren't on the agenda. If you want to speak on an item not listed, I ask that you wait till the second public discussion where you'll be able to talk about anything that is not on the agenda. The borough administrator will keep track of the time and indicate when 3 minutes have lapsed. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone keypad, or if you are on your computer or smart device, select raise hand button in the application. The borough administrator will announce your turn by reading out your name or the last 4 digits of your phone number. And please begin by telling us your first and last name as well as your address. So borough administrator, has anyone raised their hand?
Mayor, I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, just one more
You can give
time.
it another second.
Sorry?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, I just want to one more time tell you, if you do want to speak, the way you raise your hand again is to press the *9 or the raise hand button now.
I think
Okay.
there's no hands raised.
Okay, we're going to move on then. May I have a motion to adopt or reject the resolution to approve the emergency temporary appropriations?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Fine,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Elsie is still muted.
Elsie,
Sorry, yes.
Councilman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hale.
Yes.
Okay. Clerk, would you please report on advertising 433 Cleveland Avenue redevelopment plan for consideration of passage on final reading by title?
Ordinance of the Municipal Council of the Borough of Highland Park, County of Middlesex, authorizing the adoption of a redevelopment plan for 433 Cleveland Avenue pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law, NJSA 40A-12A-1, was duly advertised for consideration of passage on final reading by title, and affidavits of publication are on file. The ordinance was also posted and made available for public inspection as required by law.
May I have a motion to adopt or reject this and a resolution to advertise the ordinance on final reading by title?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Hale, we need a public hearing.
Oh, thank
No,
you.
you've done the public hearing. This has been
We did a public hearing.
Oh, this was a carried one. Thank you. I'm
This
sorry.
is a carry. This has been carried for a couple weeks, so we've had several public hearings on this. So.
Okay, you're set to go.
Okay.
Thanks for keeping me honest.
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Yes.
Councilman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hale.
Yes.
Okay. Clerk, could you please report on advertising the tree protection ordinance amendment for consideration of passage on final reading by title?
An ordinance to replace Chapter 388 as the Code of the Borough of Highland Park concerning tree removal and protection was duly advertised for consideration of passage on final reading by title, and affidavits of publication are on file. The ordinance was posted and made available for public inspection as required by law.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, I was just going to ask you, Council, do you have something to say about this ordinance?
Yes, thank you. The Environmental Commission reviewed the ordinance, and as a result of that, there are 3 minor changes that they recommend. First, in the preamble, they were questioning how preserving the trees might protect against severe weather. I'm not quite sure how that got in there, and I think their feeling was that it probably, the tree protection ordinance really would not have much to do with preventing or protecting against severe weather. So in the preamble, they suggested that phrase be deleted. The only other 2 changes were that when STAC coordinates with the planning board to put a report in and make a recommendation, that also should be extended to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. It's not often that the Zoning Board of Adjustment will handle a site plan, but sometimes they will. So they suggested in the 2 sections where there's a STAC, a collaboration with the planning board, that we add and the Zoning Board of Adjustment where applicable. So those 3 changes are really de minimis. They do not, they're not substantive. And my recommendation would be to consider adopting the ordinance with these 3 amendments. And then we would work with Joan tomorrow to put them in the ordinance and get them over to her for publication.
Okay, I do want to mention to the council members at this point that this has not gone to the Public Works Committee for discussion, but these items are so minor that it didn't seem necessary on behalf of the Environmental Commission and the Shade Tree Commission to delay this much longer. So if no one has any objections, then I'd ask for a motion to take up the ordinance on final reading.
Mayor, if I may, one more comment. I spoke literally 5 minutes before the meeting started with Ms. Baruch from STAC regarding some additional information in section 11 of ordinance 388 regarding plantings for commercial properties, which was not included. However, as our borough attorney just noted, there's a difference between substantive and non-substantive changes. And I told her at this late moment, it probably would be a change, and therefore I advised that STAC should bring it forward at a later time and take it through Public Works in the normal, as this ordinance was vetted by Public Works several times in its present form. That being said, I would move the ordinance for adoption.
Mayor? Oh, I lost. Do we lose the mayor?
We just lost the mayor.
Just lost her.
Give her a moment to come back. That was not foreseen.
Alrighty.
Emma, how'd you lose the mayor?
Yikes. Maybe she lost a connection.
I do see a hand up among the attendees.
I do. I had a point before we go there. I think we have to recover the mayor.
Right, I agree.
But before we go to that, I wanted to talk about your point, Ed. I mean,
Yeah.
Phil, because I saw Rosie's email at the 11th hour as well. And we did discuss that matter, and Ed had an opinion on it, and he may be able to offer that.
We found the mayor.
Sorry.
Hey, we found the mayor.
My internet went out for a second and now it's back.
Ooh, oh no, don't jinx it.
And I thought everybody else froze.
Would it be appropriate, Mayor, Phil brought up one of the chairs from Sachs comment, I don't know where you cut out. But Ed, I believe when we sent you the draft, you had some concerns about commercial properties versus non-commercial properties with respect to the tree protection ordinance. And we deliberately had made that change.
Yeah, I think I agree with Council President. I haven't seen what she's talking about. I have a hunch what she's talking about, but I think we ought to have that go through the normal process and have the council tonight vote on the ordinance as amended, and then we can always amend it again.
Good.
Okay. So in that case, may I have a motion? Oh, public hearing?
And we do have someone with their hand raised.
Right.
Okay.
All right, and please say your name and your address.
Is this me? Do
You're
you hear
on,
me?
you're on.
I'm on. Okay, because I do not see me. It's Rosie.
No, it's no video for attendees, just all audio.
Okay, very good. So this is Rosie Baruch at 616 South First. And thank you very much. And first of all, thanks, Phil, very much for listening to me at, 6:59 and whatever it was. I just want to take 2 minutes to update the council on this language that was in our original draft. It fell out. What Shade Tree had proposed was this. We were looking for ways to make the replacement of trees easier for the residents. And so what we did was we actually reduced the number of trees that residents need to plant if they need to plant in mitigation, which is to say they need to plant because they took something down. We also said that they only need to plant if the tree that they took down was actually fairly large. So you had to have a bigger tree and you didn't have to plant so many trees in mitigation. However, we felt that for property that is held for investment, and there's a lot of that in Highland Park, and also for commercial property, such as our garden apartment complexes, for example, that it would be appropriate to help conserve our community forest for these properties to mitigate as we have mitigated in the past, which mean, a fair number of trees need to be planted when you take down a tree, and we expect you to mitigate even for trees that are somewhat smaller. The challenge for us here is that, and I appreciate very much the advice that was given by Council President George that we should go forward this evening and adopt certainly the changes that have been made. We appreciate that, but we do not want to fail to amend further the tree ordinance to provide for this second schedule that would apply to commercial property. Otherwise, we feel that the burden of supporting the community forest is going to be a little bit disproportionate on the residents as opposed to commercial properties. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Otherwise, we will reposition the language. However, Council President George thinks we ought to do it. We've been working with Emma, who's been terrific. So let us know what you think is the best way to keep this moving forward.
Okay, so what I think I'm hearing then is that you would agree with the council moving forward with this amendment as long as we didn't forget the amendments that you're looking to add, and that would also then, Phil, give you and your Public Works Committee a chance to talk about them further.
Yeah, yes, Mayor. I think that's the way to do it. We do need this amendment. STAC has worked on it for nearly a year. It's been reviewed in its present form by Public Works on several occasions. DPW agrees that it's a good workable plan. I would like to see it enacted tonight to simplify and streamline our older ordinance. The changes that are we discussed late this evening before the meeting should go to Public Works for review so that we can give a report to all of council and then bring it forward in the normal course. But I did not feel that it necessitated holding the ordinance, going through substantial amendments, re-advertising it to get it out and get it working for our residents and our property owners.
Okay. So is there any other public wishing to speak on this?
Terry, you're muted.
No, there are no other people indicating they're interested in speaking on this topic.
All right. In that case, may I have a motion to adopt or reject and advertise the ordinance on final reading by title?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Fine,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Yes.
Councilman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hale.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there, I'd like a motion to adopt items number 12 through 21.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Yes.
Councilman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hale.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt or reject a resolution authorizing an area in need of redevelopment with condemnation designation for Block 173, lots 41, 42, 44, and 45.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, before I ask for a roll call, I'm inviting our Special Redevelopment Council, Joe Bauman, and Borough Planner Jim Constantine to speak and provide some background on this item.
Thanks, Mayor. As you know, the council kicked off the process of considering whether the lots in question satisfy the criteria of an area in need of redevelopment with condemnation powers. I know it was a decision that took a lot of thought, a lot of consideration, and it's not something that Highland Park went in to lightly by any stretch of the imagination. But you asked the planning board to consider whether the criteria under the statute were met as it relates to these properties. And again, this is an area where the Highland Park has been hopeful that redevelopment can occur and these properties are put back in commerce. So we asked the planning board to consider it. LRK, Mr. Constantine's firm, and in particular himself, analyzed the properties, compared the conditions to the statute, and provided a report to the planning board. The planning board noticed the hearing, had a hearing. Several people spoke at the hearing, including myself, Mr. Constantine. Members of the public representatives and members of the property owners, some of the property owners spoke, and the planning board, I think, unanimously concluded that, in their opinion, they recommended to the governing body that they designate this as an area in need of redevelopment and condemnation powers. It's a pretty robust report that LRK prepared, and Mr. Constantine is here to maybe give you some highlights and answer questions that you may have about the report.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Constantine, can you present to us?
Sure. Good evening. Let me try share screen here so I can get to a quick summary. All right. Are you able to see the page that's up on the share screen?
Yes, I have it.
Yes.
Okay, great. So the four properties that we're talking about are indicated there. I think they're in the title. And I would just provide some quick highlights on them. I'm going to group the first two together, Block 173, lots 41 and 42. They have related owners, 133, 127 Raritan, and then I'll follow by grouping together Block 173, lots 44 and 45, Denison Street, owned by Highland Park Properties. Let's see, I gotta get over here. The properties are in the CBD zone. Can you see my cursor when I circle this here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So there you can see all four of them. Two of them have frontage on Raritan Avenue. All of them have frontage on Denison Street. Since 2005, they've also been in the downtown redevelopment plan. And here is an aerial photo where, again, you can see the first two properties I'll talk about, lots 41 and 42. And then we'll proceed on to the smaller ones that sit behind the dry cleaners. So just to give you a summary of the existing conditions, if we start with lot 41, which is the vacant, irregularly shaped property that has a partial parking lot on it. It has a wider frontage of 93 feet on Raritan Avenue, and then it tapers down to 16 feet back on Denison, which gives it an irregular shape. It's mostly vacant. There's a small parking area. There's also several trees and a fenced-in area, and it's constrained by a change of grade and steep slopes as you get back to Denison Street. It is an active NJDEP site. Reviewed the permit file. There were underground storage tanks removed in 2008. There was some release of either heating oil or waste oil, and an incident report was created. The current extent of contamination, if any, is unknown. The active site designation may discourage the undertaking of improvements and otherwise have a negative effect be detrimental to the health, safety, welfare of the surrounding area and community, which meets one of the criteria for designation. Back we mentioned it's a irregularly shaped property. The photos on the left show the wider frontage. We refer to it as a gap in the downtown streetscape on Raritan Avenue, where there is an existing parking area. The requirements of the zoning for the site prohibit access or front parking, so any future parking would have to be accessed from the narrow portion of the site back on Denison Street, which has a change in grade and is one of the constraints on the site in terms of access, would make development of the site more complicated and costly. The present layout in the front with that parking area is again non-conforming with respect to the downtown redevelopment plan. The parking lacks any sort of definition of ingress and egress. There's big bleeding driveways allowing for wide maneuvering. There's no accommodations for handicapped parking or any pedestrian amenities or protection or delineation. And in fact, someone can, as you can see from the photo in the bottom left, can basically back out of a parking space and just continue right onto the sidewalk where there's a conflict, potential conflict with pedestrians walking in the public right-of-way. The majority of the parking shows deterioration. There's also an abandoned trailer, which you see pictured on the right middle photo on the site, as well as garbage, trash, litter, rubbish, debris throughout. There's a board on board and chain link fence that were installed in 1998 that are in a state of disrepair. And there's a large yard area with dead or dying trees, limbs, or other aspects of overgrowth. And this general lack of maintenance and deteriorating conditions constitute a hazard and nuisance to persons and or adjacent properties. If I switch to the next property, which contains, this is lot 42. It's a nearly rectangular shaped through lot, again with frontages both on Raritan and Denison. They're almost equal, so it's almost rectangular. Contains a 2-story building fronting on Raritan, and then a large 1-story building attached to the rear, which you can see pictured in the bottom photo there. Flip back and talk about the 2-story building. Contains a vacant storefront on the ground floor, at least one apartment on the 2nd floor. The rear of the property remains unimproved, containing several trees and constrained again by the same change in grade and steep slopes that I described with the adjacent lot. This also is an NJDEP active site, and the current extent of contamination, if any, is unknown. No reports have been filed with the NJDEP. Nevertheless, similar to the other site, having that designation has some negative impact and could be detrimental to the health, safety, welfare of the surrounding area and the community. The property does have adequate frontage along Raritan Avenue. Again, the downtown redevelopment plan and zoning would require access from the rear from Denison. So again, that steep change in grade at the back is a constraint that complicates and adds costs to development of the site. A review of the permit file indicates that there's been a relative lack of maintenance. There were some permits in 1991 for electrical service upgrades, in 2004 to replace some rotted wood under the soffit in the front and side of the 2-story building. In 2007, in response to a fire inspector's request, there were 5 receptacles installed to replace outlets which were run with zip cord to BX wiring. In 2007, there was a permit filed to remove an underground tank. No other permits have been filed in the past 30 years that would otherwise show the buildings have been routinely and periodically maintained. So there's been no replacement of roofing or storefront windows, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and other mechanical equipment. We did not go on the property. We're doing this by researching the files and public records. Review of complaints and violations, police and fire records indicates 2014, the building department cited and took action regarding loose bricks at the front of the building along Raritan Avenue. And those were secured from being a safety hazard. And then in 2018, there was a violation warning issued by the building department regarding broken windows, which I think are pictured in the upper right there along Raritan Avenue. It's not clear if those repairs have been made. The exterior of the buildings are in disrepair. From our visual inspection from the right-of-way, we could see that there were signs of deterioration, dilapidation, and otherwise in a state of repair. The masonry facade, as numerous cracks were observed, as you can see in these photos. And prior attempts to repair the masonry is evidenced by different colored brick and mortar. The front of the building, there's some horizontal displacement, and the masonry appears to be bulging towards Raritan Avenue. There's missing bricks behind the pent roof, storefront over the storefront systems, the top of the parapet above the garage door. There's other broken windows, and stucco finish has broken off in a couple of places, exposing underlying concrete structure to the elements. And the storefront system is constructed of wood, which is in various stages of rot, which you can see in the upper left photo. There's a downspout along the side that's been disconnected, so that could potentially contribute to water infiltration and water damage at the foundation of the building. At the rear, the one-story building, which is pictured in the bottom two photos, has several broken or boarded up windows, lacks properly designed railings around the rear door, which you see in the bottom right photo. There's horizontal and vertical cracks on the facade, exhibiting its state of repair. And the masonry exhibits various stages of rot. And there's a brick chimney at the corner, northeast corner of the building that's partially collapsed. And along the perimeter of both buildings, there appear to be water infiltration and water damage to various portions of the masonry facades. Both buildings appear to be substandard, unsafe, unsanitary, dilapidated, or obsolescent so as to be conducive to both unwholesome living and working conditions. And additionally, a combination of these factors are detrimental to the safety, health, welfare of the community, given that there's little remedy to the above conditions, sort of major renovation and reconstruction, which may be cost prohibitive, or the replacement of both buildings. And then last on this property, with regard to the rear yard property and maintenance, again, it's a modest area. There's dead and or dying trees, limbs, other overgrowth, garbage, trash, litter, rubbish, and debris throughout. Similar to the other site, there's maintenance and deterioration of existing site conditions. So to summarize, relative to the criteria for these two lots, and this is the study area criteria or evaluation that's in the report. We're talking again about lots 41 and 42. I'm going to start with 42, which hits criteria A, which is due to the substandard, unsafe, and obsolescent characteristics of both of those buildings, which I described. The property is conducive to unwholesome living or working conditions in accordance with criteria A. That's only for lot 42. Criteria D, which applies to both lots, is met due to a combination of dilapidated conditions, faulty arrangement of design, and obsolete layout of various improvements, as well as the fact that the property is listed, both properties are listed as active sites with the NJDEP, which may discourage the undertaking of improvements. The properties are detrimental to the health, safety, morals, welfare of the community, again, in accordance with criteria D. With respect to criteria E, with regard to lot 41, that criteria is met in part because of the irregular shape of the property, the improper improvements along the width of the frontage along Raritan Avenue, and then for both properties, the lack of the grade change issues that we described in terms of the frontage on Denison Street, the lack of maintenance of both sites, continuing deterioration of the existing conditions that create a hazard and nuisance to persons and or adjacent properties, and the growing lack of total proper utilization of these properties discourage the undertakings of improvements and impedes land assemblage, which results in a stagnant, unproductive condition of land that could potentially be useful and valuable for contributing to and serving the public health, safety, welfare, in which conditions are presumed to be having a negative social or economic impact, or otherwise being detrimental to the safety, health, morals, or welfare of the surrounding area or the community in general. So that takes care of lots 41 and 42. And I will speak to criteria H at the end, so that applies to all properties. So the next two were lots 44 and 45, which sit behind the dry cleaners. And I can pretty much summarize both of these two lots together. Lot 44 and 45 are both irregularly shaped mid-block. Lot 44 has 51 feet of frontage on Raritan Ave, on Denison Street, and Lot 45 has 47 feet of frontage. Lot 51 is 92 feet deep. Lot 45 is 94 feet deep. They're fairly similarly sized, and they share many of the same characteristics as follows. The properties are undersized with respect to lot area, lot width. They're constrained by that change of grade on Denison Street, which creates, and the steep slopes, which precludes any as-of-right development of these properties. They've both been vacant for more than 10 years, and the constraints of the property due to the accessibility because of the topography along Denison Street means that the property is not likely to be developed on its own. And additionally, these conditions impede land assemblage and discourage the undertaking of improvements, resulting in a stagnant and not fully productive condition of land, potentially useful and valuable for contributing to and serving the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. It can be more effectively developed as part of a larger comprehensive redevelopment plan, and these existing conditions presumed to be having a negative social or economic impact or otherwise being detrimental to the safety, health, morals, or welfare of the surrounding area and the community in general. There is one other aspect to the both properties with regard to the front property maintenance along Denison Street, which is not actively maintained. Again, it contains dead and or dying trees, limbs, overgrowth, garbage, trash, litter, rubbish, debris throughout, as is pictured in these photos, or if you stand on the street and look in. Last, with respect to lot 45 only, it is an NJDEP active site, and in coordination with borough professionals and based on the submission of a hazardous discharge site remediation fund application to the DEP to conduct a preliminary assessment and site investigation of the property on behalf of the borough. And to date, those investigations have not been initiated due to access restrictions by the property owner. We do know that during the investigation of the nearby Ubrees service station in 2013, it was found necessary to conduct off-site investigation work of this property, lot 45, including 2 soil borings and 2 temporary groundwater monitoring wells, and the wells were analyzed for volatile organic compounds that in both wells that was above the NJDEP standard. The active site designation, again, similar to the adjoining properties, may discourage the undertaking of improvements by having a negative impact and otherwise be detrimental to the health, safety, welfare of the surrounding area and community. So with that, the summary of the findings for these 2 properties include criteria C, which is due to the unimproved vacant land that's remained so for a period of 10 years by reason of access, lack of access, and topography, that the property is unlikely to be developed through the instrumentality of private capital. So that meets criteria C. Criteria D is met for lot 45 only, and that is due to the fact that it's listed as an active site with the NJDEP, which might discourage the undertaking of improvements, and again, be detrimental to the safety, health, morals, and welfare of the community. And then lastly, criteria E, which applies to both, is due to various conditions in the growing, these conditions which we've described, and the growing lack of total proper utilization of the property really discourages undertaking of improvements, impedes land assemblage, results in a stagnant, unproductive condition of land, potentially useful and valuable, contributing to and serving the public health, safety, and welfare. And this condition is presumed to be having a negative social or economic impact and otherwise detrimental to safety, health, morals, or welfare of the surrounding area of the community, again, in accordance with criteria E. The section 3 criteria, which applies to both of these, is that they can qualify as a condemnation area in need of redevelopment under section 3, which states a redevelopment area may include lands, buildings, or improvements which of themselves are not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, but the inclusion of which is found necessary with or without change in their condition for the effective development of the area in which they are a part. And then last, criteria H, which is that the designation of all of these properties is consistent with smart growth planning principles adopted pursuant to law or regulation. The borough is an identified town center under the New Jersey State Development and Redevelopment Plan, as well as indicated by Middlesex County. And the area in need of redevelopment would be consistent with the policy objectives of the state plan and the goals and objectives of the Metropolitan Planning Area, PA1, that we're a part of, and then further the designation of this study area as a condemnation area in need of redevelopment, and its transit accessible location within walking distance of a range of transportation choices, including a train station, proximity to parks and open space would be consistent with smart growth planning. So that covers what I had to present. If you need a conclusion, I can provide it as well.
Okay, thank you, Jim. That was very thorough. Can you remove the graphic?
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to adopt this area of condemnation. Are there any questions before we call a vote?
I have a question. Lot number 45, that extends back to Denison Street?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the biggest lot that there is.
No, it's only on Denison Street, lot 45. It's the smaller, it's the smaller lots.
Yeah, I saw it on Denison, but I thought it was on Raritan, then extends over to Denison, but it's only on Denison.
It's only on Denison, behind the cleaners.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get clarification on. Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, there is a motion on the floor. May I have a roll call?
Councilman Fine,
Gotta unmute yourself.
Josh, you're muted.
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Yes.
Councilman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hale,
Yes.
Okay. May I have a motion to adopt or reject the resolution establishing the rate of interest for delinquent taxes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Fine,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Yes.
Councilman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hale.
Yes.
Okay, I want to thank you all for that. I also want to let you know that I've been in constant discussions with our neighboring communities of Metuchen and Edison, and they are signing on and will be doing the same resolution with their councils as well. Were you waving?
Mayor, I just wanted to make sure that we're explaining this to the public about exactly what it means in terms of when property taxes are due compared to when they used to be due and all of that. I know we needed to take quick action on this, and I just want to encourage our communications department to make sure that this message gets out far and wide about when the dates are in terms of paying and what the resolution says specifically. I think it's really important to get that message to people as best we can.
Good point, Councilman. And Borough Administrator, would you like to, or Borough Council, would you like to talk a little about the resolution, either one of you? and what it does and the dates that are involved and the percentage rate, et cetera.
Well, Mayor, if I may, you brought it to our attention that a group of mayors had been discussing this for a while, and also the state had put out recommendations with regard to municipal taxes. Now, the second quarter of taxes, which we are in now, is due May 1st. And what happens by law is that if you're late with your taxes after May 1st, the first $1,500 has an interest rate of 8%. And this, after that, the interest rate is 18%. But it was felt that because of the emergency and the fact that people are either not working right now or may have lost their jobs or been furloughed, which is beginning to go on, that they might have difficulty getting their taxes in on time. Now, like me, my taxes are paid automatically through my mortgage payment, but actually we're probably less than 50% of Highland Park actually pays that way, which makes an undue hardship for a lot of our residents and property owners. And therefore, the proposal that you brought to the Finance Committee during the week, which we decided to move forward, was to move with the state's recommendation to go to an interest rate of 0.00001 for any late payments and give a little extra time after May 1st. It's now extended through May 30th or May 29th. However, everyone should know that as of May 30th, the rates go back to what they were. The borough has to pay its way. It has to pay money that we collect for the Board of Education. And those payments are due right at the end of the collection month for the second quarter. Therefore, the rather stringent and even painful interest rates are going to go back into effect. However, the borough has stretched whatever we can possibly do here by doing the 30 days of, or the 29 days of grace period to allow people to take care of their tax payment for the second quarter. We wish we could do more, but that's the limit that we have, unfortunately, right now. And so we did move it forward. I will note that I personally called all the council members on Friday to let them know about the decision, personally, because we had not been able to discuss it at agenda. It was still at the Conference of Mayors and League at the time, so that we wanted everyone to know before we took action tonight. But I hope the public recognizes that we have limited abilities to deal with the tax situation in light of everyone's unfortunate situation, but we did what we could.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to also be clear that that the state is also talking about some help that they might be able to give to municipalities, and hopefully that will help us in the third and fourth quarters of this year. We'll see what happens. So again, thank you on behalf of all our residents for stepping up and keeping their situation in mind.
Thank you for that explanation, Councilman George, and thank you, Mayor, for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, we're ready for our second public comment section. This is limited to 3 minutes per speaker on any item, and it is subject to closing the discussion at 9 p.m. prior to our work session. And again, if anyone needs or would like to speak, just to remind you, you can use your raise hand button or press *9. Terry, I'm going to ask you if you see anybody wanting to speak.
Mayor, I do see someone. Robin Lowenstein has indicated an interest in speaking. Please repeat your name and address before making your comment.
Okay, my name is Robin Lowenstein. And my address is 116 South 4th Avenue. And I just wanted to point out, because I think it's important for the public to know, I noticed when I watched the recording of last council meeting that in her report, Councilwoman Foster-Dublin made sure to announce that the Lowensteins resigned from the squad. For some reason, I don't know why that was announced, but what was woefully missing from tonight's report, and I think the public needs to know this, is within a day or two after that report, the squad's hours were drastically reduced by the squad. You know, we know that for a couple of years, we were begging and pleading to answer all 168 hours in the month, and we were in the week rather, I'm sorry, and we were limited to only answering 108 hours in a week. The squad is now committed to 30 to 36 hours. That's what the squad is covering. The Highland Park First Aid Squad right now, as of a day or two after the last report was given, has gone from committing to 108 hours per week to committing to 30 to 36 hours per week. So I think that the public just needs to know that.
Thank you, and I'm sure Councilwoman Foster-Dublin will give a report next week on all of her public safety, next council meeting, on all of her public safety areas. Okay, are there any other questions, comments?
Sorry. No, I don't see anybody else indicating an interest to speak.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor, I just want to say that the squad may have gone in the reduced hours. However, with COVID-19 and the hospitals are stretched, all of first aids are stretched. We can see where yesterday that FEMA came in to help out the hospitals here in the state. They're now at Robert Wood Johnson because of the great demand. And I must say that our first aid squad has stepped up to the plate, although they're on reduced hours. Whenever there's a call in Highland Park, they have been making those calls during the day because everyone is stretched under the COVID emergency pandemic that we're having in the country. So they have been stepping up and they've been providing service. And I thank them very much for that.
Okay, thank you. Normally at this point, we would go into a 5-minute recess. Given that we're all sitting at our homes, does anyone feel they still need that recess? No? Okay. In which case, I'd like to go right into our work session items, where no formal action will be taken, starting with water and sewer contract operations timeline, TJ.
Yes, sorry, I'm just calling up my little timeline cheat sheet. I just wanted to keep this on everybody's radar because it is a fairly consequential effort for our community. We've solicited proposals, resolicited proposals from qualified companies to operate our water and sewer system on our behalf. The proposals are being written now and are due on April 30th. And the reason I point that out is we would need to move fairly quickly from that point to the second meeting in May, hopefully, assuming we have a bid to award to take action. And just so you know what's going to happen between now and then, we have, once the proposals come in, they'll be distributed to our review committee, which consists of our attorneys, Joe Bauman's firm, McManaman, Scott, and Bauman, our special counsel on this matter. They'll be part of that, as well as our council president and public works chair, Phil George, Mike Wazirskiewicz from the public works superintendent, myself, and Greg Fehrenbach, our utility consultant, and our CFO. So we'll all be reviewing that. We'll convene via Zoom for a meeting to review the proposals, and then we hope to have a recommendation for council to consider. And so ultimately, just to give you a sense of the timeline, the next council meeting, I'm just looking at my cheat sheet, that we could possibly do this award if we were adhering to a fairly tight time frame would be May 19th. So we're looking at a matter of weeks here. And assuming we have a contract to award, that's what we're targeting. And we would have to publish notice. We'd have to then execute the contract, which we're targeting for June 15th, and then having a commencement period of July 15th. And just to make sure everybody's aware, I think there's a transition period where our existing utility personnel will be working with the contract operator to ease the transition. And I could see this being fully in effect and working by September. So this is fast times. And we had a fairly exhaustive process that Phil could speak to for the first round of proposals, and we're looking forward to getting these ones in at the end of the month. So that's the update. I just didn't want this to, there's so much going on. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that this is also proceeding, because this is of vital importance to the borough.
Thank you.
And if there were any questions.
Want to add anything to that?
Oh, Phil, you're muted. Your turn.
All right, so touche, Terry, now we're even. Just to add in, as the borough administrator said, it's an exhaustive process. I have the books here that were submitted. They're right behind me. One is approximately 500 pages of exhibits. The committee met to review for over 3 hours. This is a very detailed submission with regard to managing our water and sewer. It does take a lot of work, but we are now in a position where we have to fast track it, because we have to deal with the state Water Quality Assessment Act and the submissions that we're required to do. Our special counsel on this project has been very helpful, but there's a lot involved, and it's going, as I've been saying over and over again in my reports, there's a lot going on with regard to water and sewer that we're all going to have to be tracking. Despite the COVID-19 emergencies, we're going to have to really drill down on this now. Terry's quite correct on the timeline that we have. That being said, our benchmarking on this we have been tracking is not too far off, because we did fast track everything that we've had to do so far. And council was right there with it, and Greg, our consultant, with their comments and feedback immediately. So while we are a little bit behind in our benchmarking, we're still in the range that we had anticipated having all of this done and in place by July 1st.
Oh, Mayor, if I may, I have one. Phil bought me time to remember one thing. One thing that will be coming before council, hopefully for the next council meeting, if we can get our ducks in a row, is an amendment to the bond ordinance that was passed, I believe it was last year, or at the end of 18. It's not to appropriate additional funds, but we need to expand the purposes within the ordinance to include some of the work that the contract operator will need to do. Frankly, we had intended those ordinances to cover that work, but our attorney has advised us that it needs to be a little more specific. So they've drafted some amendments that I've shared with our bond counsel, and we will be hopefully able to present that to everybody for review prior to the next council meeting. It's for things like a condition assessment for the water system, which is integral to planning our future investments, but it wasn't spelled out adequately, and we need to make sure it is, so that we can rely on that funding for the necessary work once we have the contract operator in place. So more to come, but I didn't want to spring that on everybody, without some advance warning.
Thank you, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 2020 budget overview.
So this will be a lot quicker than I was anticipating, in the sense that I had thought we could use this time to do kind of our work session that we usually do in advance of a budget adoption. But true confession, this last week I wasn't able to get things as prepared as I wanted. And the truth is, I need a little more time to talk with Greg, our CFO, because I want to make sure what we introduce kind of does reflect, if appropriate, some of this current state of affairs for COVID-19. I think the reality is it's going to be the 2021 budget that's going to be the tougher one, because we won't know what the economic ripple effects are going to be. But I haven't had a chance to connect with Greg as I had hoped, and I feel it would be a better use of everybody's time if I kind of closed the loop with him and then we convene. I'm looking at dates next week because we do need to introduce at the first meeting in May so that we can adopt in June at the first meeting, which would keep us on our statutory track. Again, I had mentioned this last time, I don't see my numbers shifting greatly from the overviews that I've presented previously via email to everybody and provided, but I think we're gonna need that special meeting after all. So that's all I have to report, Mayor, I'm sorry. But I think it just would be a better use of everybody's time if I could put the final touches on everything before sharing.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is to go over goals. I'm going to call on each person in order of how you're appearing on my screen. If you have anything to report that's new towards your goals for 2020. So Elsie, you're up first.
We had, my goal was to do the setbacks on the streets in Highland Park and, you know, to look at the residential area, but we started the process, but COVID-19 happened, so everything is on hold at this point. So really, I have no updates. The police department and working in conjunction with Department of Public Work has been put on triple overtime, and all of that work is now on hold.
Okay, thank you. Matt Hale?
I actually think, Mayor, that every goal that was on my plate prior to COVID-19 has been wiped away. And that when we were talking about wanting to fill a single building as a goal, now we have multiple buildings that we have to fill. So I think that it's simply a different world in terms of economic development goals, and the goals that we need to focus on are trying to protect the businesses that we have as opposed to trying to get new businesses at this point. I think we're getting there. We're working on some ideas, but I don't think that the goals that were set prior to COVID-19 in my particular area are particularly relevant anymore. And so I think we got to figure out how to do new ones, quite frankly.
That makes a lot of sense, Matt. Maybe you want to start thinking about some, redirecting your goals.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely.
Okay. Council President George, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. Fortunately or unfortunately, my goals for the year are all long-term. Number one is the implementation of phase 1 of the water and sewer projects. We just heard the update on that. You do hear me saying that we're measuring the benchmarks at every meeting in order to some of these larger long-term projects with a lot of moving parts need to be benchmarked in that way. We are, as I said a little while ago, a little bit behind, but still within our overall target. My other goal was the sidewalk plan. The 2014 report was circulated quite some time ago with its attachments. I recently circulated to all council members step 1 of developing the SOP to have it in place by December of this year. As you know, developing an appropriate work plan for this go-round is essential. It was not done last time. It was a bit piecemeal because of a lot of different factors. This time, we want to move forward and organize. Step 1 in any SOP is to gather the players and the parts and who does what. That was circulated along with part 2 of developing an SOP. So we're moving forward on that. I would actually hope that we'd be in a position to appoint the task force personnel, such as we did with the first sidewalk study group in 2014, by assuming that the emergency is lifted enough for us to go forward and at least get to some of these projects which aren't important, but not as important as managing the town day to day by August. So I hope to have the SOP completely done and circulated so that we're ready to roll that out, say by the end of August. We're on track with that.
So can I ask you, Councilman, Council President, have you and Terry had a chance to talk further about a proposed walking route during COVID-19?
We've had some conversations early in the week last week. We have not had a chance to reconnect. Ms. Ovier, as you can see, the tire tracks on her from the budget and the emergency, and I've just left that to sit at this point. I did speak to DPW. We have the route selected. We have a stencil which has the footprints and an arrow. I did design it so that it literally can be carried by one man and just wheeled up and down the sidewalks. They do have a handheld sprayer, so we don't have to have the two-man sprayer kit. But Terry and I need to land on the program. Our superintendent is ready to roll it out at 6:30 in the morning whenever we decide we can move that project forward. But we do have to have a little more discussion on it.
Okay, so I know I am getting lots of questions from residents about this, and it's something that I think would make a lot of people in town very happy, given that our parks are no longer
Well, Mayor, if I may, just because I think, I just want to, I don't know if we could do this off sides, but where I thought we had left things with my last conversation with you and Councilman George was to develop some best practices for getting around safely, getting exercise, and promoting different routes and things. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, well, that's why I want you and Phil to get together.
Well, we had talked about that, but the truth is we got a little sidetracked with the resolution and some other things last week. And the weather, fortunately, has been in and out of good days, bad days. So we do have a draft of something and
okay, great,
ready to go this week.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Thank you both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who did I miss? You all moved around again. Josh. Okay.
Yes, I do not have anything to report regarding my goals this evening, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, given that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, everyone, please stay safe.
Thank you. Good luck
Good
to
night,
everyone. Be well and be safe.
Good
Good night.
Night.